This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, as always, Jeff Malinoff, and with me is Mark Souza. We got stuff to talk about in the world of football, as we have new coaching hires, as well as a roundup of the NBA, and some other news and corps we should discuss later on. But first, we got to talk about the major head coaching signing of the day, and that's Bruce Arians has signed a coaching job with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Todd Bowles is also signed as their defensive coordinator. So we have our first big signing of the year for head coaching jobs, and it was kind of weird because Arians said he would only go to Cleveland, but I guess they weren't interested in him, so he went to Tampa Bay. What do you think about this, Mark? What do you think about this signing?
Well, first off, I think Cleveland could have really used a guy like Arians. I was excited to maybe see the pairing of an Arians-Baker Mayfield combo because young quarterback, exciting. Arians known as an offensive guru, offensive mind, definitely a quarterback's coach. But he doesn't go there, and he goes to Tampa Bay, which I am very surprised by. I did not know that Tampa Bay or Bruce Arians would be a match that I would see happening.
I didn't even know they were in talks.
Yeah, and it just seems like Arians, he can be a little choosy with the job that he wants to go to because he is a well-respected head coach in the NFL, and I think, multiple teams were interested or would be interested, and for him to pick Tampa Bay is interesting to me because that signals that maybe he sees something, maybe he is given some sort of power, maybe he likes Jameis Winston, but I really think that the biggest winner today is Jameis Winston, and I think that with Arians coming in, if there's someone that can, get his career back on track, because last year he was not just suspended, he was benched as well in favor of Ryan Fitzpatrick, Yeah. So if there's a guy that can get the former number one draft pick's career back on track, I got to figure that if Arians can't do it, nobody will.
Arians is a quarterback-friendly coach for sure. I mean, he made Carson Palmer into a star in his late in his career. So he has done wonders with quarterbacks. So it's safe to say that he can do the same with Jameis Winston.
And did you see that the Cardinals are going to get a 6th and a 7th round pick out of this? Because technically Arians is under contract, quote unquote, with the Cardinals because he left.
Retired,
yeah,
quote unquote.
So instead of getting into a drawn out dispute, the parties agreed to basically swap picks. The Cardinals,
but their end of the draft.
Yeah,
picks,
they're just
pretty much pointless.
Yep. All right. So, no, I think it's a great. I think it's a great move by the Bucs. I mean, only time will tell. I know Arians is one of the older coaches, but man,
he also had some health issues, which was one of the reasons for his retirement, quote unquote.
I read that they gave him a full-on physical. Like, he went through a physical that any player would go through if they were signed as a free agent, which
I think that's safe to say because he had a lot of problems at the end of his Cardinals run. So
yeah, it is unusual, though.
Better be safe than sorry.
Right. But I do also like the fact that he's able to bring in a guy like Todd Bowles to run the defense. You got to think, like, Arians is one of the more respected NFL guys in the whole league, so it's like he has the ability to make a phone call to a guy like Todd Bowles, and Todd Bowles be like, "Yeah, I can do your defense for you."
Todd Bowles coming off that firing of the New York Jets job, as he had a struggling couple of 4 seasons of struggle with the Jets.
Was it that long?
It was, I think, 4. I think it was about 4. Yeah, doesn't seem that long, but that's what failure really feels like. But anyways,
no, I think overall though, I think the Bucs I'm surprised that they actually did something that I would agree with. I really am.
But I think the main concern is like, well, how does this affect their draft choice? Like, who are they going to pick now in the draft? What's going to be?
That's a good point. We don't know what kind of their philosophy will be, but I was reading that since I think they have the 6th pick. No, excuse me. They have the 5th pick. Some mock drafts have them getting Greedy Williams from LSU, which I think would be a great pick for them.
Yeah, he's a great pick for anybody that's looking for
I
a
think
defense.
if you look at the Bucks, I think with Arians, you kind of trust that, with Mike Evans, Jameis Winston, they drafted a running back, Ronald Jones, last year. You kind of trust that the offense doesn't need maybe a first-round pick addition, whereas the defense could really use a guy like Greedy Williams, don't you think?
Oh, well, anyone can use Greedy Williams. He's always good.
But I mean, like that defense could really use like either a pass rusher or a DB. Like they could use an infusion of talent on that side of the ball, I think, a little bit more than the offense.
Well, we've said this before. We'll say it again. This is a defensive draft for sure. I mean, we don't see a offensive guy going until Jonah Williams, and he's the only guy offensively that's like top 5, maybe even top 10, to my knowledge. Mm-hmm. So, obviously, this is a heavily favored defensive class. So, will we see Bruce Arians go defense? Most likely, but again, we'll see.
It's hard to say because is there really an offensive player that people are talking about other than a quarterback that could be drafted in the top 10? Because I don't even think there really is.
I don't think so either.
So it kind of feels like if you're in the top 10 and you don't need a quarterback, you might as well just take the best defensive player unless you – I mean, obviously every team has their own, scouts and board and things like that, but – you don't want to you don't want to reach for an offensive player if you could just get a stud defensive player if it's there, right?
Yeah, of course. And, of course, this is, quote-unquote, the Nick Bosa sweepstakes draft, which I don't really agree with personally because I think there's a lot of players that could go number 1 this year. But, again, we'll talk about that later.
What about the Bucks? They could get an offensive lineman. Maybe Jonah Williams gets to their pick. You never know. Someone like that. Like, it doesn't have to be a skill position per se. It could be a left tackle, a right tackle. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it is interesting. What I do like is that I think Tampa Bay is going to become. I think with this kind of hire, it changes their perception. It might get them to be able to sign a couple free agents, whereas maybe they wouldn't be able to in the past, just because Bruce Arians is a name.
Yeah. A very accomplished name too. So it's one of those things in where it's basically reputation that's got him the job.
Will Bruce Arians be the only plus 55-year-old coach to be?
I didn't know where you were going. I thought you were going to say plus size. I'm pretty sure there's other
plus 55-year-old coach to be hired this offseason because we're seeing a trend with the other 2 signings yesterday.
There is another signing in Arizona, ironically enough, because he moved on from Arizona. Now Arizona's got their new head coach in Cliff Kingsbury. Mm-hmm. And he's been the offensive coordinator for USC for a grand total of 30 days, roughly.
Has it even been that long?
He hasn't called, Well, it's clear to show he hasn't called.
Because it was between...
He's done virtually nothing for USC.
Because he was the coach of Texas Tech.
Yes, which they were 5-7, right?
And what was his record? 35-40.
Something small like that.
He was 5 games under.
I honestly don't know how. Oh, it's because of one guy.
Well, I mean,
if Patrick Mahomes doesn't have a great season, he's not getting this job.
What was his record without Patrick Mahomes? What was it with Patrick Mahomes? That's what I want to know.
I don't think that's
He
relevant.
also had Baker Mayfield.
Did
who
he?
transferred.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And then they had that epic game against each other, Mayfield and Mahomes, where they totaled 1,000 passing yards and set 8 touchdowns or 9 touchdowns.
I think it's along the lines of them signing him for Josh Rosen to get better.
It is interesting that you can get fired from Texas Tech and get hired by the Arizona Cardinals in a matter of, I don't know, a month and a half.
Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah,
So he is a young offensive mind. He's, 39 years old, I believe. So he's about the same age as Kyle Shanahan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
He's
sounds
played
right.
in the NFL very briefly. He played in Canada briefly as a quarterback.
Oh, Canada. The CFL is actually entertaining to watch if you ever.
I think
see
he
it.
played for the Patriots. Wasn't he a Patriots backup for a hot minute?
He's probably like the third.
I think he
string.
threw one NFL pass, if I remember correctly.
Probably an
he has like some
interception.
random stat.
Yeah.
It's like one pass. All right, so what's your take on Cliff Kingsbury to the Arizona Cardinals? Do you like this move?
It's for one guy. It's for Josh Rosen. It's for their quarterback. That's only it's for mainly.
But do you think it's a good move? Because there's other offensive coaches that they could have hired.
We will definitely see.
I mean, there's
It's not what you call this is not a slam dunk thing, or it's not like, oh, this is the worst thing. We don't know yet. We'll have to find out.
right. But what's your take on it? I mean, you got to take a position, right? Do you think it'll be a good thing, or do you think it'll be a bad thing? Like, if you had to guess.
I think it's good for their offense and for Josh Rosen, but as for their defense, it's not as bad as everyone thinks it is. So I think it's a benefactor, definitely, because the one thing they needed desperately is an offensive-minded coach.
Does it bother you, though, that he's never coached in the NFL and he was under 500 in college?
No.
Really?
I mean, I like giving opportunities to guys. So I think.
Does it bother you that the knock on Patrick Mahomes coming out of college was that he wasn't a polished product, whereas a lot of other quarterbacks were coming out of college?
You know, there's been
'Cause
so
that
many.
little
How many
concerns
times have there been guys that do their scouting and they're dead wrong?
Well, people love Patrick Mahomes.
LaDainian Tomlinson was considered a bust coming into the NFL.
No. But that's different. That's different. That's a different conversation. No one was saying that Patrick Mahomes wasn't good. The knock on him was that he was going to take a little bit of time to develop because he didn't have some of the skills that the other quarterbacks in his class might have had.
Yeah, but I think any NFL quarterback should not start the first season they're drafted. I think they need a year. Every quarterback needs a year.
Right. But does that concern you that the knock on Mahomes was that he didn't have the best footwork? He didn't have the best, a lot of the mechanics weren't great.
Everyone's going to look at their negative sides and multiply it to a degree. So, no, I'm not worried.
So you think the Cardinals made the right move with Cliff Kingsbury?
I think it could benefit them, yes.
Well, yes, I know it can benefit them. It can't, but you'd say yes, you like this hire?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
No one's giving him any love, and I'm saying maybe people are wrong.
I mean,
about him.
people like him, like they think he's a young, exciting mind. I am very concerned about it because he has no say over who his personnel will be, and I don't have any faith in the general management of the Cardinals. I mean, their drafts have been poor, in my opinion.
And
so
also,
it's
you have to look at the fact that he had the job at USC. He was going to be fine. So
as an offensive coordinator, though, not the head coach, that's also a little bit interesting, too.
Well, I think he would have gotten – it's still a huge job at USC. He would have gotten a better job elsewhere if he stayed there probably and they were successful. So I think he likes the challenge. I think he likes Josh Rosen, obviously. And I think this is going to be it's only going to benefit Josh Rosen to be with a guy like him.
Do you think, other than his coaching ability, the dynamic in Arizona, because it sounds like – they're not going to have a change at general manager, and they've had a problem acquiring talent. Do you kind of think he's in a bad spot, like in terms of being able to excel as a coach? You know what I'm saying?
I don't think so. I think they got to give him some chance. Like you got to. I know what you're saying, but I think it's more along lines of you got to look at the process.
I just wonder if maybe a veteran coach would have been better suited to handle some of the things, because I just kind of feel like this is the kind of guy, no pun intended, but he can get buried like in Arizona. Mm-hmm. Like who's going to take the blame if Rosen starts out poor and they're 0-5 next year to start the season? It's going to be the coach. Who's going to take the blame if...
Okay, do they really expect them to go like 13-3 next season? Come on, this guy needs to marinate.
Let's just look at the facts. They fired Steve Wilkes after one season. They expect them to be a little bit better next year. There's absolutely pressure. If he goes 3-13,
I think that was like order envy once they signed Wilkes. I think they got off.
if
right
they go
away that
3-13, though, is his
guy.
job safe? That's the thing, right? Because they just fired a coach who went 3-13 after 1 year.
I would say yes, just because they gotta give someone longer than a year. I think that was a.
You would think so, right?
But they can't go 2 coaches in a row, give them 1 season, and fire them. No, that's not happening. I'm sorry, no way.
So some people are skeptical by this move because they think that the Cardinals just signed the cheapest coach in the NFL. A lot of people think they just want the cheap route because they're notorious for not paying a lot of money for coaches and basically anything. Mm-hmm. Do you think that had a factor in this? That they knew that they could get this guy for cheap, so if it doesn't work out, they're not on the books.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but who knows what they're actually thinking. I think people just like to jump to conclusions right away.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I don't know, man. It's weird. The thing I will say is Texas Tech, to give him the benefit of the doubt, they don't get the best recruits. They don't recruit like, Alabama and even a lot of teams in their own conference. But they also were one of the worst defenses in college football every single year he was there, and I know he's an offensive coach. But that's another concern that I have. Is Cliff Kingsbury connected enough to get somebody that can run the defense effectively? Like Bruce Arians, he was able to get Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles is one of the most respected defense coordinators in the game. Does Cliff Kingsbury have that kind of, I don't know, connectivity? Like, does he have that kind of, connections around the league? Do people want to work with him? Because that is a factor, right? Because we can agree, even if you like him as an offensive mind, he will need a good defensive coordinator, right?
Yeah, but I think...
I mean, they were one of the worst defenses in college every single year, so he needs somebody to kind of take over.
He was the coach at Texas Tech. I think asking him to be defensive coordinator of an NFL team is a lot more appealing than Texas Tech.
Sorry, say that again?
I think being the coach of an NFL team instead of Texas Tech is more appealing for defensive coordinators to join with him. And the Arizona defense actually has some talent. So I think... Hey, coming to Arizona and being the head coach of an NFL team instead of going to Texas Tech, I think those are 2 completely different things. You can't compare them.
Yeah, no, I know. But the question is more along the lines is, will he be able to recruit a defensive coordinator?
I'm sure he will.
Is there any names that have popped up as who might be his defensive coordinator?
Nothing yet, not that I've seen. But I think it's just one along the lines of hey, you want to try this NFL team out with me, regardless of their relationship? And he's like,
it sounds like really, I don't know, like you want to try this new yogurt shop?
Yeah, exactly. Why wouldn't it? If he gave you a call and you had some talks but not too many, and he's like, you want to try being defense coordinator? Everyone's going to say yes.
Well, the problem is who's available. That's the thing. Will he be able to call Vance Joseph and be like, hey, Vance Joseph, come be my defense coordinator? Because if he can get someone like that, then that's. Well,
Vance Joseph ain't going to find another job, I don't think.
He is being considered for Cincinnati.
Everyone's considered for Cincinnati.
Well, he's a former coach.
I'm considered for Cincinnati.
He's a Marvin Lewis coaching tree guy.
I think we know that Hugh Jackson's destined to be their new next head coach.
It could be a Hugh Jackson Vance Joseph combo. They're Joseph doing the defense and Hugh doing the offense.
But I think Hugh's almost going to definitely be their head coach.
I like Cliff Kingsbury. I think that it's great for him. Following up is always good. You get fired from a decent college and you are all of a sudden the head coach in the NFL. I like it for him. I just feel like it's a marriage that's destined to fail, but we'll see. He also has to coach in a division now with Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, and Pete Carroll, which will be interesting.
It's not going to be easy for sure, but they got to give him more than 1 year.
Isn't it funny that Kingsbury's 39 and he's the second oldest coach in the division?
Well, when it comes to Kyle Shanahan, who's
I believe he's a few months older than Shanahan, and he's 6 years older than Sean McVay.
Yeah, McVay's a kid. And
do you think that Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay are the reason all these coaches, like, we saw LaFleur, who's getting hired by the Packers.
Young hires, you mean?
Yeah, because it's like everybody's going for these young millennial hires, right? Like, that's where where the trend is.
Because you can't just go with the old guard. You got to sometimes bring in some new blood.
And that's what it looks like is happening around the league. That's where it looks like
working.
The trend is going.
Especially with McVay's success. I mean, why wouldn't you continue that trend?
Well, that's the thing. Everybody's trying to get the next Sean McVay. But, I mean, until otherwise, Sean McVay, yes, it looks good, but he hasn't won anything yet in the NFL.
Well, the NFC West title.
But it makes sense
and
to try and get a young coach. It does, and also another thing I read that I've been reading, I'm a big proponent of getting an offensive-minded head coach. I'm not saying in every circumstance. There's always exceptions. But the reason is that when you hire a defensive-minded head coach, what usually happens is even if the defense is stellar, the 1 year or 2 years that particular team gets good, it's because their offense gets good, and what usually happens from there is that offensive coordinator gets plucked by another team to be the head coach, and then you're constantly in the cycle of trying to...
That sounds a lot like the Atlanta Falcons.
It kind of does, right? So it makes sense where it's like the theory is you should try and hire an offensive-minded head coach because defensive coordinators are easier to replace, and they're less sought after for head coaching jobs than the other way around. So it kind of makes sense.
There's only a very few defensive-minded head coaches in the NFL or around the league, in any league, football-wise for that matter, because this is now an offensive league. It's an offensive era in football.
What would it look like, Jeff, if we all just listen a little bit more? Listening to audiobooks inspires us, motivates us, and brings us closer. There's no better place to do that than with Audible. Audible has the largest selection of audiobooks on the planet, and now Audible members get more than ever before. Each month you get 3 titles of your choice, 1 audiobook, 2 originals, and fitness programs that you cannot get anywhere else. There's never been a better time to experience Audible. Try it free for 30 days. Visit audible.com/GSMCbook or text the code GSMCbook to 500-500. Do that today and start that 30-day free trial.
What happens to your decision-making when you drink? Well, after one drink, you feel confident. A few more, and calling your ex at 1 a.m. seems like a great idea. And you're pretty sure the secret to a great taco is 4-day-old macaroni. The bottom line, drunk you doesn't make great decisions. So you're risking a DUI or worse if you count on him to get you home. Plan before you party. Get home safe. Brought to you by Washington.
Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We just talked about some head coaching hires. Now let's continue on with some head coaching. As Mike McCarthy has said publicly, or maybe not publicly, but it's been reported that he is only interested in the New York Jets job, which is a big question mark to me personally, because why wouldn't you be interested in that Cleveland Browns job? Because I feel like that would be more attractive than the Jets. But what are your thoughts on Mike McCarthy saying he wants to be the Jets head coach? Do you think it's about Sam Darnold?
Do you think that the Browns job might not be as attractive to others because of how, like, the odd power structure they have there?
Yeah, but
like, it seems like there's a lot of people involved, whereas like the head coach for the Jets might be kind of the king of the castle or like have more power.
Maybe, but once you get into that. Once you get into that team, you're going to be winning immediately. That team is ready to win now. That team is more playoff ready than any other available coaching in the league.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I say that's the most what's the word? That's the most attractive offer.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Like, if you're looking at it for next year, but if you're looking at it for 4 or 5 years down the road, maybe Sam Darnold and the Jets front office is who he would rather work with, you know? It kind of makes sense. Like, I can see it. I don't think it's crazy. We we assume that the Browns' job is the best job because of what?
The talent, the kids, the players,
Mm-hmm. And then what are some of the negatives?
the front office.
And, ownership. Like, they're kind of just the
living
Browns.
in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. Living in New York.
Nothing against Cleveland, people from Cleveland, but come on, that's not the best place to
Maybe
live.
he likes Sam Darnold, a lot. We don't know, Maybe he sees more in Darnold than Baker.
McCarthy and Darnold sitting in a tree. KISSING.
I don't know about all that.
First comes love, then
All right,
comes
nobody
marriage,
wants to hear it.
then there's a baby sitting in a baby carriage.
Wow.
That's
That
not
was
all.
butchered.
That's not how it goes.
All right. Anyways, the Falcons, they have brought in Dirk Cutter to be their offensive coordinator as he was let go from his head coaching position with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What do you think about Dirk Cutter? He was there before, right? Didn't he get the job because he was the Falcons coordinator and then he left and then Shanahan came in?
Is that how it worked?
I believe it was. I could be wrong.
So we have come full circle?
I want to say that is correct. But regardless, what do you think about this for the Falcons? Because they let go of Sarkisian from the offense coordinator role.
Sarkisian, yeah. Makes sense because how poorly they did offensively compared.
2012 to 2014, he was the offense coordinator for the Falcons, Dirk Cutter. So, Yep.
So obviously he has some connections there still. Hence why.
And then he was the offensive coordinator for the Bucks 1 year, and then he was the head coach. So he goes back. He was the offensive coordinator for 4 years in Jacksonville before the Falcons, and now he goes back.
I think Falcons are more appealing than Jacksonville for sure.
He was successful for the Falcons. They went to an NFC championship, right? Was it 2013 when they played San Francisco?
And the NFC title, that was the 2012 season, but it was January 2013.
So he was the offense coordinator for that game and for that team. I think it's a good move.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's going something with than the devil you don't know type of thing.
Oh, yeah? What's that quote?
Classic saying, I would rather go with the devil I know than the devil I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So Dan Quinn, I mean, he's a defensive-minded head coach for the Falcons. So to bring in Dirk Cutter, I think that's the right move. So you were saying, you saw a story earlier that you were reading an article that Kyler Murray was leaning towards going to the NFL over Major League Baseball?
Yes, and I don't know if this is fact or not. This is on Bleacher Report, and that's usually trustworthy. But the question I think remains is, if he does go to the NFL draft this year, where do you see him being drafted?
Man, that's such a hard question because where is he is he a top 10 pick in your opinion? Would he be the number one quarterback?
Okay, well, let me look at the top. He would be the number one quarterback, yes.
Over Haskins?
Yes.
Is that a for sure slam dunk?
I would say him or it's not a for sure slam dunk, but Haskins is definitely a caliber player.
Haskins only has 13 starts, but he does have a big arm. Seems like he's accurate.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's the order. Arizona 1, Niners 2, Jets 3, Raiders 4, Tampa Bay 5, Giants 6, Jaguars 7, Lions 8, Buffalo 9, Denver 10.
Well,
if any of those teams, Jacksonville would take him.
Unless the Raiders part ways with Derek Carr and no one trades up into the top 5, then I think the Giants would be the first team to take a quarterback. And then
Giants?
The New York Giants, because they need a quarterback, right?
All right, so between the Giants and the Jags, who do you see taking who? Kyle Murray or Haskins? Do you think back-to-back quarterbacks?
I could see that for sure.
Or do you see?
Some people think that
the
the quarterback from Duke, Daniel Jones, is going to be the Jaguars' pick if the Giants take Haskins.
He's highly touted, but Duke compared to Ohio State and Oklahoma.
There are mock drafts that have 3 quarterbacks taken in the top 10, and that doesn't include Kyler Murray.
That doesn't include Kyler.
No,
Who's
it'd
the
be
other
Daniel Jones and Drew Lock. Drew Lock, the Missouri quarterback.
Wow, that's actually quite surprising.
Well, it is a quarterback league.
Do you see someone trading with the Cardinals to get the first pick and getting, instead of Nick Bosa, going for one of the quarterbacks?
I don't think so. And the reason why
trade up in general, like going.
I think
over
there
the
will be a
Giants?
trade up, but I don't think it will be to the Cardinals. And the reason why I say that is because it doesn't appear that any of the teams in the top 5 are going to take a quarterback. So I don't think you have to move up all the way to number 1. In fact, the number 1 pick, value-wise, I know that teams kind of value those picks differently, but the difference between the 1, the 2, and the 3 are actually pretty significant. So if you get the number 1 pick, you're giving up a ton. So if you go get the number 1 pick, you're actually saying, like, I think somebody's going to get the number 1 pick and take this quarterback if I don't, and I'm going to give up like 3 first-round picks for that spot. Yeah. Now, if you move up 4 or 5 spots, like if you go from Jacksonville to Oakland, for example, or the Giants to the 49ers pick at number 2, that will cost considerably less than the number 1 pick.
That would cost at least your next year's first-round pick,
sure.
I would assume.
But it wouldn't cost what the Redskins got for with the Rams trade.
Or the Ricky Williams trade, the Saints trading every single draft choice.
So, like, if you're the Jaguars and you're pick 7, to go to number 1 will probably cost you 3 first-round picks. It costs you this year, next year, and the year after that. If you go from 7 to 2, it probably doesn't cost you that 3rd first-round pick. It'll probably be this year, next year, and maybe a second-round pick or a third-round pick.
That's still a lot.
It is still a lot. It is, but 3 first-round picks in a row is really high.
I think the Jaguars can even trade with the Jets and get the quarterback they want.
Sure.
Or, like, that.
A lot of the teams picking the top 5 don't need quarterbacks, right? Like, none of them unless the Raiders.
See. The Cardinals have Rosen. They drafted him last year. The 49ers have Jimmy Garoppolo, who's coming back from an ACL tear. The Jets have Darnold, so they don't need a quarterback either.
Raiders currently have Derek Carr, so it
but
depends on what they do.
That's not written in stone yet.
But we will know that before the draft starts, if they have him or not.
Even Tampa Bay, they have Winston.
Yeah, they're not taking a quarterback.
So you can even trade up to the number 5 pick and get the first best quarterback available.
You could.
Who would you see trading ahead of the Giants? Because the Giants obviously don't need to trade up. If
Jacksonville for sure has got to be in the conversation. They're the most likely, right? Like they're the team most likely to jump the Giants.
Cincinnati trading from 11 to 5.
I could see it happening.
I could see Miami.
How about Denver? I know they signed Keenum, but it's only a 3-year deal.
I think it's too soon to draft a quarterback immediately after one season with your quarterback you signed to a 3-year deal.
Keenum's not your quarterback of the future, right? If he was your quarterback of the future, they would have signed him to like a 4 or 5-year deal. They signed him to a 3-year deal. They kind of signed him to be the bridge. Maybe they fall in love with the quarterback and they don't draft this high again, so it might cost them more in the future. I don't know. We don't know who likes who, right? There's going to be a lot of things that will develop. Pro days, combines. Cincinnati at 11. They could move up. Absolutely. The Dolphins at 13, but it sounds like the Dolphins are engaging in a more long-term approach to their rebuild.
Washington, because of Alex Smith's injury.
Washington, absolutely. Absolutely have to consider Washington. I mean, there are teams.
Yeah.
There are teams. I think we.
Yeah, but if you're the number 15 pick like Washington is, what are you giving up for that high top 5, top 10 pick?
I don't think Washington would do that. I think what realistically is Washington moves between like 6 and 10, where maybe a quarterback has already been taken. They're the ones that get
Daniel Jones probably.
Yeah, maybe a quarterback's already been taken, but they get the next one.
They might. I don't think they'll get Murray, maybe not even Haskins, but I do see them getting Daniel Jones.
They could get Drew Lock.
We
have to remember. I know what you're going to say. We have to remember, this is a quarterback league, and quarterbacks fly up draft boards. Baker Mayfield was not even a first-round pick until about 2 weeks before the draft, and then he was the number 1 pick as it got to that day. Like it went crazy in one direction, you know? And I know what you're saying.
The band?
I know what you're saying, though. Drew Lock, it doesn't really do anything for you. I get it. Like, you're not all excited about him. But a team, all it takes is one team.
This year?
Yeah, but you know what? You can say the same thing about Cliff Kingsbury at Texas Tech. What did they do this year? You know,
or Josh Allen at Wyoming.
It's exactly. It's one of those
even
things.
Josh Rosen at UCLA.
It's one of those things where you're looking for an individual in a team sport. And team success can mean certain things and sometimes not mean certain things, right? Dwayne Haskins, though, I think Dwayne Haskins will be the number one quarterback taken. I'm not sure if
You think
I think he could be taken over Kyler Murray.
It's him over Murray. If Murray,
I think available. He could because he's going to be the quarterback that impresses the most leading up to the draft. He's going to have the size. He's going to have the arm strength. He's going to have some things over Murray, whereas Murray has more starts under his belt. Murray's had more individual success. Mm-hmm. But we can't rule out Haskins. Like, he was a big-time prospect, too. And he was third in Heisman. It wasn't like he, came out of nowhere, right?
Yeah, true. Very true.
We'll see.
Okay.
Anyways.
Yes, we got to take a break. But first, I want to talk to you about Audible and audiobooks, for that matter. Audiobooks inspire us, motivates us, even brings us closer. And there's no better place to listen to Audible. Audible has the largest selection of audiobooks on the planet, and now Audible members get more than ever before. Each month, they get 3 titles of their choice. 1 audiobook, 2 Audible originals, and fitness programs they can't get anywhere else. There's never been a better time to experience Audible. Try it free for 30 days by visiting audible.com/GSMCbook or text the code GSMCbook to 500500. Remember, if you want to try this free for 30 days, visit audible.com/GSMCbook or by texting the code GSMCbook to 500500.
What happens to your decision-making when you drink? Well, after one drink, you feel confident. A few more, and calling your ex at 1 a.m. seems like a great idea. And you're pretty sure the secret to a great taco is 4-day-old macaroni. The bottom line, drunk you doesn't make great decisions. So you're risking a DUI or worse if you count on him to get you home. Plan before you party. Get home safe. Brought to you by Washington Target Zero.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We finished about the NFL stuff. Now let's go to the NBA. And there are actually some bits and pieces that happened in the last 24
Wiggins?
hours. Yes, Wiggins.
You want to talk about Wiggins?
Yeah.
He had a slur.
Yeah, a slur. He called, I believe it was Dennis Schroeder, gay in a post-interview. Mm-hmm. And he has, I believe he has denied it. Or he's apologized. He denies using slur. He says he didn't call Dennis Schroeder gay in post-game interview. He completely denies it. He said in a tweet, "I'd like to clarify what I."
Did you see the initial quote though?
No, I didn't. Let me just finish what he said first. I'd like to clarify what I said during my post-game media session. I said I don't know what's wrong with him. He was just acting crazy for no reason. It says getting ... acting crazy for no reason.
So what he said actually was, I don't know what's wrong with him. He was just gay. He was acting crazy for no reason. So that was the actual quote.
That is not the term to use in that situation.
So, of course, he, recanted. And like you said, he put out that statement. He also had a following tweet that said, I have the utmost love and respect for the LGBTQIA community, and I would never use any term to disrespect them in any way.
Mm-hmm. A likely story. I don't know. I'm not going to accuse him of anything.
Yeah, so he's probably going to get fined. He'll get fined.
Yeah, obviously it was one of those slip-ups. Like, some people were like, that's gay. And he was like trying to, maybe he was like, as soon as he said, he was like, I totally did not mean to say that. It was just, he says that with his friends or something like that. It's like everyone has like their own, they say some inappropriate things or rude things with their friends, mm-hmm. and they move it into actual other conversations. So that, I'm guessing, that's how it worked.
There was a incident that happened in the game that we need to talk about that, before all these post-game comments, the same game, the Thunder and the Timberwolves, Nerlens Noel taken off on a stretcher midway through the third quarter, and it was a drive by Wiggins to the lane where Noel and him collided. Noel's head ends up hitting the ground, hitting the floor on the way down.
Yeah.
Very scary, and he was taken off on a stretcher. I am not sure what his condition is.
He has a concussion.
That was...
It's officially reported he has a concussion.
You could hear his head bouncing off the floor.
That's... Can we not?
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Can we not say it? We can hear it because that's a gruesome image.
I mean, that's what
I know, but still. Gross.
Yeah, the commentators pointed it out, and it was not a good sight. He left on a stretcher. It's never a good thing when they leave on the stretcher. It's always a terrible.
Nope.
But hopefully, he'll be fine. Because if it's just a concussion, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, but we all know concussions are not the, the best thing for you.
No, for sure not.
Like, continuous concussions sometimes.
But he plays basketball. If he played football, what's the chance he's going to get another concussion playing basketball? I mean, it's pretty low. Could it happen? Sure. But football players are hitting.
We'll just hope for his recovery.
Mm-hmm. The Timberwolves did get the win, by the way, 119-117. That was Ryan Saunders' first game as coach. We talked about this yesterday, and his first win.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Congratulations to his first win. And it means I think it's a destiny he's going to get re-signed. I'm just kidding. I have no idea what's going to happen.
And it was, oddly enough, Andrew Wiggins' best game of the season, 40 points and 10 rebounds. So he had his best game. He was involved
with a pretty good game, a 40 and 10 game.
Yeah, and he was involved with a player who got a concussion, albeit not his fault. And then the slur after the game. Quite a night for Andrew Wiggins. Very eventful.
Yeah, I was about to say eventful is the perfect word for that.
Did you see the Warriors trounce the Knicks? So a lot of people were talking about this game before it happened because the Warriors were an 18-point favorite. And people were like, that is the most ridiculous number.
Yeah.
And they won by, 27?
Yeah, that's accurate.
122-95. Klay Thompson, he is on fire right now. 43 points, 7 threes. Curry had a rough shooting night, but it didn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, this game is such a... the NBA is being weird recently, I feel like.
It's also being reported that the Sacramento Kings and the Knicks are in conversation of a possible trade between Enes Kanter to Sacramento for Zach Randolph, who hasn't played all season long, to join the Knicks. I don't know if it would be like a buyout situation or if they actually plan on using him. But what do you think about that trade?
It's interesting to say the least. Like, Kanter going to Sacramento is probably benefiting Sacramento more than Zach Randolph to the Knicks.
It seems like it would be a move to try and tank for the Knicks, right?
Yeah, this seems like a very one-sided trade.
They both have expiring deals.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I guess if this trade does happen, these two guys would re-sign with each other, with these teams, I'm assuming. I'm just going to make assumptions on that. But if they don't, then this trade is just mainly just for... one team's trying to make the playoffs this year, the other team's trying to tank this year. That's the best I can get out of that.
Mm-hmm. What about for the Kings? They add a player who can rebound and score a little bit?
This team will make a good run for the playoffs if this trade goes down.
They had a terrible loss last night. They were up by 21 and lost to Phoenix.
That was a brutal loss, and I'm not sure how that's going to... I think they're just going to have to move on from that. I think that's the best they can do. I can't really think of anything else to say about it.
So McCaw got released by the Cavaliers, the restricted free agent.
Mm-hmm.
And now the NBA is looking into this. They're reviewing the signing of McCaw, and possible draft picks could be on the line here. I'm not sure what the reasoning is, but it sounds like they're reviewing if the Cavaliers kind of, acted in a unprofessional manner by signing him to an offer sheet and then releasing him right away.
Yeah. I think this is just, I think it's a money moving. It's hard to say with these trades, but mainly it's just about saving money for a lot of these guys.
So Cousins is going to debut around January 18th. It sounds like that would be, they play the Clippers that night. The Warriors play the Clippers. Is the season over if DeMarcus Cousins comes back healthy and even is a half of what he was in his time with the Kings and the Pelicans?
Game over, man, because that's basically what you're going for. Game over, man.
I mean, they're going to have a starting five of Curry, Clay, Durant, Draymond, and DeMarcus Cousins.
My head hurts just thinking of that.
It's like the evil empire.
It's the Yankees of the basketball.
I just think of the dun 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 dun.
And yet, why? I don't like this because
why, Jeff?
Well, I'm talking about my headache, but mainly I was talking to just about like he's gonna come back playing pretty well, and
you know it.
Borderline unfair.
He's gonna come back.
It's like
he's probably going to drop 30 in his first game.
That is an all-star team lineup. That is legitimately like
and DeMarcus Cousins would be an all-star if the voting ended today.
At the all-star game, these could easily be a starting five. And they're on the same team in the real world, in the real NBA.
It's like somebody's playing a video game, right? Like NBA 2K or something.
Yeah, it's like you do those forced trades or those signings where you have no cap space type of stuff. You turn on all the settings to go in your favor, and you get all these guys.
If he comes back and he's literally half the guy, I mean, he's going to be... or if he's half the guy that he was, then they will absolutely just win the championship. I don't think any team will have a chance.
Just give him the trophy now? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, they're already, second best record, third best record in the league without him. And it's not that they've needed him before, but he's just the extra, it's just, they could have 5 guys on the court that can all hit threes. I just want you to think about that. They could all stand around the arc and just pass it from one end to the other until somebody gets open and then hit that shot.
How was that?
When Draymond Green is the worst shooting three-point shooter on the court, that's a really good shooting team because he can knock him down when he's open. He's not Klay Thompson or Steph Curry or anything like that. He can knock him down when he is open. Knock him down.
Instead of the Splash Brothers, this is like the Splash family now.
It's a big family if they're all brothers.
The Addams family.
Yeah, so it's
that
kind of
song
ridiculous.
Benefits. That song suits that team so well. They're creepy and they're spooky. I forget how the rest goes, but creepy and spooky goes with that because it's just spooky that all these guys are on the same team.
All right,
man. Remember the good old days when it was.
They sound
not
old.
This.
Whenever somebody says "remember the good old days," it's like some old stuff that they're gonna say.
Remember the good old days and 1999 when there was no dominant team except maybe the Lakers, but they only had 2 players, not 17.
1999.
I don't know. I'm just trying to think of random stuff.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the sports show with some news and notes around the world.
We'll see you right after this, and you don't need to watch basketball anymore. The Warriors are going to win.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the final segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast. We've done NBA, we've done NFL. What's next on the agenda? What do you got for us?
I have Eric Reed.
Oh, right. I can do this. The NFL Players Association, as well as the NFL itself, had made a statement saying these random drug tests, the 7 that Eric Reed has gotten, have been that totally random. They're not intentional at all, which I personally think no way is 7 times random.
How do they determine this? They just open an investigation?
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, that's how they do it. Or they have a wheel. They spin a wheel, and whoever's face it lands on, that's who gets the drug test. And they just have Eric Reed's face on like 6 times. Mm-hmm. You know when they have the the favorite, it's like the lottery. You get a lot more options. You get more of yourselves getting picked. You know what I mean? There's more of your ball in there than anyone else's. That's Eric Reed. He just has the advantage.
It's hard to sit there and just say that it's random,
but
it's happened so many times.
Thank you to Bleacher Report, because it's set, or Rappaport in general says, independent reporter says Eric Reed, or independent report, says Eric Reed was drug tested fewer times than he publicly claimed. Do you believe that? Or do you think it actually was 7 times?
Maybe he exaggerated. I don't know.
Still, if it was still more than 4 times,
yeah, then it sounds weird.
Because how long has he been on the team for? He was signed in September, October-ish.
I want to say he was signed after like the 4th or 5th game, if I remember correctly.
And so it's been 10 weeks,
10
roughly.
to 12 weeks, maybe 3 months.
So 3 months, and 4 times out of those 3 months, at least 4 times you've been tested.
And I think how it works is there's 5 players selected after every game or before every game to do the test. So it's like 5 players a week, and for him to get called upon, 1 out of 10 chance basically.
And getting that 4 times, he should go for the lottery.
So Ohio State Buckeyes quarterback Justin Fields, he's asking the NCAA for immediate eligibility and hopes to have an answer here in the next few weeks. He enrolled at Ohio State this week after spending the first part of the season at Georgia. He was the number 2 overall prospect in the 2018 recruiting class, but he played a backup role, and then he announced that he was going to leave. He wasn't happy that he wasn't the starter. What do you think of this situation?
He wasn't happy that he was the starter. I kind of get what he's getting at.
So he pouted and left.
Yeah.
Do you think that's kind of dumb? It's 1 year, right? Like, I get it. Even if the coach said, hey, we plan on playing you the first year, hey, you know what? Maybe the other guy was just better right away. But it's the first year.
Mom, I'm not playing enough. I'm not. I'm just saying a random example.
Ouch.
I wasn't saying that he did it.
I wonder if Mrs. Fields is listening to this podcast.
Hello, Mrs. Fields. Your son is still a good quarterback who's probably still going to get drafted in the NFL, or at least the CFL, or maybe the XFL.
Or maybe the All-American League, is that what it's called?
The American Football Alliance or something like that?
The AFAA or something.
The AAF. I think it's the AAF.
It's
the Alliance of American Football. That's what it is.
Alliance of American Football of America.
Of America.
Yeah.
Of North America.
Yes.
Of the planet.
Of the Western Hemisphere.
Sure. Just go there.
Well, I think we're done for today. Before we start boring anybody else.
Okay.
Yep.
You're not bored, are you?
If you start singing again, then
thank you for joining us.
It'll pop off.
Okay. Thank you for joining us, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow for our Thursday show.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.